Hello fishies, and welcome to the first installment of Ask Echo, a compassionate coaching series for professional mermaids. I realized that I got into this conversation with Eiledon so quickly that I didn't give a proper introduction, so today's conversation is with Eiledon, a pal of mine from the Minnesota Renaissance Festival who works on the street as a street character, and we're going to be talking about how gender can impact our costuming when we are trying to come up with different characters, character developments that we are communicating through what we put on the character. So I hope it's a useful conversation for you about makeup and costuming as a professional mermaid. Enjoy, and I'll see you at the end of the video.
So tell us, what should we call you on the internet, and what are your pronouns if you want to share?
So Eiledon is my real person name. I also stream on Twitch under that same alias. But Salai is the Renfest character with his own account. My pronouns are give me. Is it gender? Give me your gender. I will take it. Well used or brand fresh in the box, I'll take it. Whereas Salai is strictly he, him, he is a man.
And he is phenomenal, and I love him so much.
Yes.
Cool. I'll call you Eiledon for this interview, and we'll use all the pronouns. That sounds so fun.
I am working at the Minnesota Renaissance Festival out as a character named Salai. He is one of Leonardo da Vinci's apprentices, and the reason I decided to be him is because I'm heckin' autistic, and that is one of my special interests. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, swear as much as you want.
I am hella autistic. Like, wait a minute. And he's one of my special interests. So when I auditioned, I'm like, I want to be this little Italian twink, per favore. I'm like, yeah, sure. So I'm like, heck yeah. So a big reason I'm out there as him is because then if someone's like, tell me about you, I'm like, I can info dump about history. Amazing. And it's just fun to do. And also, right now, my friend Bridget Foy, who is also out at the Renaissance Festival as part of the Rogue's Daughters, is putting on a production of The Cid. I actually have a little thing right here, a little pamphlet. Opening night is the 31st, and I am only halfway off book. So
you reached out to me with a really phenomenal question. What was your question?
My question was, so as someone who is assigned female at birth, if I wanted to do mermaiding as a more masculine or a male character, how could I do that to make myself look more masculine? Because when I am out there as Salai, I'm not wearing a binder because that's too much for out there, but I am wearing some compression top and stuff so I can get that flat chest. Like my doublet is made of upholstery, so it's like there's nothing there. Whereas with a mermaid, you don't really have that same coverage. So are there techniques or like things you could do other than just like makeup that could be like how make less boubage?
I'm so glad you asked. I have some other questions for you before I give some ideas. Are you interested in mermaiding? Have you done anything like it before?
So no, I haven't, but it is something. So for me, I am not a strong swimmer. I know that actually mermaiding in the sense of like swimming would not be something I could do anytime soon, but I do love like dressing up in fantasy stuff and being like, oh, alternate universes in fiction, my beloved. I'm like, I would love to do a photo shoot or a non-swimming mermaid shift as Salai. Because Torgils the Viking did a mermaiding shift this year, and I'm like,
it was so fun.
That was so cool. And also sometimes Pietro and Button do mermaiding shifts, and I'm like, for that, as long as I'm not in the tank and I'm not swimming, then I'm like, I could sit there and be pretty.
Oh, absolutely.
And get a tail.
We do have a mermaid on staff who is not a confident swimmer, and she just doesn't perform in the tank, and she loves that first falls position. It's her favorite because you're greeting everyone. You're kind of the first. So I love the idea of Salai in tail. Let's talk about what we could actually, costume him in. I also want to talk about the fact that there is this inherent, I've found, sort of speed bump into accessing masculine looks as a mermaid because there's such a big emphasis on the top. The top, when you're looking at mermaids in culture, if they're wearing a top, is very much a part of the costume. It's all about the tail, but then beyond that, you look at the hair and you look at the top. And when I was designing my, non-binary mermaid character, I was like, shit. Like it's not simply like with Salai, with my other characters, with your characters that are masculine, you put that compression on. You're like, okay, now I just put on whatever. Not an option. You have to genuinely consider some kind of covering that is nautical and that is affirming of the character, which is hard when you were born with tits and you have to cover them. Yes.
Especially as someone who is gender fluid, sometimes I really like having them. So getting rid of them is not an option for me. Because sometimes I'm like, I would miss them. Come back
I
to me.
understand completely. And there are so many beautiful, wonderful AFAB mermaids out there who have had top surgery who now just like wear beautiful necklace and that's it. And I'm like, that is on the one hand a dream of mine, but also not. And I don't know how to navigate this costuming space, right? Yeah, really interesting. So I guess my next question for you would be, are you thinking that Salai, if we're taking that as the Mersona character, we can just play in that space for a minute.
Yeah.
Would he be somebody who would wear like silks or maybe more embrace the nautical theme? And like, are we thinking ropes? So what kind of texture do you feel like he would?
Salai is one of those people. He's a very look at me, pay attention to me, I want to be the center of attention type of person. So essentially, I do think as someone personally who loves themes and thematical stuff, I would be like, hey, Salai, you're going to do something nautical. Suck it up, boy.
Yeah.
And so I'm playing him. He'd have to suffer. If the real one can roll in his grave for all I care. Anyway, but so I would want to lean more into nautical stuff, but also one of his big colors is pink.
Pink, yeah, that's right. That's your doublet.
Yeah, the doublet's blue, it's the socks that are pink, and
I swear you had a pink doublet.
Hold up. I have all of it down here.
Yeah, show us.
He has his fancy boy doublet, which is made of upholstery, which is the most of the flattening. And then he has his, when it's on a hotter day, his smock for painting.
That's right. Yes, the couch that you wear and the smock.
Also, I forgot to mention this as well. Real Eiledon has Tourette syndrome, so any like weird movement, I'm fine. I'm not dying. It's fine.
Okay, I'll embrace it. No worries.
So a big info dump time. The reason these are the most important part of his costume is because Leonardo and Salai were most likely lovers in real life, and there is a piece of one of Leonardo's notebooks is like a shopping list of clothing, and he mentions a pair of rose hose for Salai. And there is I'm gonna grab that book too because I have it on my shelf. One of the biggest historians for Leonardo, named Pietro Cimarrani, wrote this fan fiction, essentially, this historically accurate to the best of his ability fan fiction about Leonardo and Salai called Salai's Pink Socks.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, my closest friend, Chiara, is training to be a Leonardo scholar. She has her her degree in art restoration, and she's currently getting an art history degree. So for her and I both, the pink socks are one of the most important parts of Salai's entire look. So every sort of outfit I do for him, I have to have that pink sock somewhere, which is why if I did do Salai in tail, his tail would have to be pink. That is
pink tail.
So he would have to have a pink tail. That is my one thing. Like,
what if, hear me out, I'm seeing in my head pink socks, let's keep the pink tail, but pink socks on the arms. And let's cut the fingers out with a thumb hole. So we have this like very almost Viking warrior structure, but it's a pink pantyhose, which is very gay. And
so that's why, like, for his real person outfit, I try not to do as much pink because I want the socks to be the most like, oh, those are the one thing that's colored differently than the rest of you. My eye is drawn to that. Whereas with the mermaid, I'm like, all pink, please. The whole point.
Okay. I can, we can work with that. Back to the top. I'm seeing in my head, like, so when I did my non-binary mermaid, they had this silk vest and I wore a compression under it. And I ended up liking it, but there needed to be more texture. So what if we compromise between the two of you and we start with silk, because I know that's what Salai would want, and we layer that with netting or rope.
Actually, have you played The Sims at all? Because in The Sims, in the mermaid pack, it does come with this like the male clothes in The Sims need some help. Give men more fancy clothing, please. Sims,
Give men more fancy
I know, right? But anyway, but the top for the men, I'll send you a picture of that in The Sims, is this like beautiful piece of netting. It is more exposing, so you would still have to do something there underneath it. But it's this beautiful, it's like this like necklace sort of thing with this sort of like netting sort of down there, almost like a fishnet in a way. And it's like
cool. Yeah, that's cool. One piece of advice I always give people who are trying to present more androgynous in their mersonas is asymmetry, right? So there is something so patently queer, I find, about asymmetry. And if you're trying to go for like the opposite gender, I think that symmetry has a place because a lot of masculine and feminine clothing are based on this idea of beauty is symmetry. But if you fuck with that, and we can find a way to like vest or drape the different textures in different areas, I think it can be really successful. So yeah, let's do like maybe a paler colored silk, not so it's not to detract from that pink tail.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we're layering that other texture in different arrangements. I think that could be so cool. And one thing I've done too is take netting and sew plastic floral into it from like Michael's.
Yeah.
And if you go into here's an example right here. If you go into Michael's, you can sometimes find like really cool different textures of fake plants, and you can actually sew them like right into the netting. So I would say you could do that. That could be super, super cool. What are you envisioning for his head, his hair? Because he's got beautiful curly hair.
So I'd probably keep those curls. I would want like some sort of like crown adornment. Like also for some reason, I definitely think pearls, you know, like pearls or something he would want pearls.
That's very gay.
So it's like, I definitely like something like, I think like a pearl, like a long like pearl necklace that sort of like goes like down to like the midriff in a way, you know, like if you like layered up there, it would be like one of the big, like, look at that. Oh my gosh.
Yes. Pearls. And also we're harking back to different queer history there too. I know that during the Lavender Society times with lesbian culture, there was some references to different pearl motifs as well. So that could be really beautiful. And one thing I've seen some mermaids do with pearls that I find fascinating is we drape them throughout the fingers as we're gesturing. Because
I've seen that a lot too, and I'm like,
yeah, isn't it beautiful? Because
so
if you think about one thing I would challenge you on as you're creating this character is Salai is a human, but what would Salai do if gravity were not an aspect of his life, right? He's used to walking and the paint going on the page like this, right? And staying there. That suddenly is irrelevant in the world of him as a mermaid. So pearls on the hands underwater would float and drape and be a fun plaything. Like what else is there for him, you know? Interesting, right? Yeah. And so, okay, so we have the pearls maybe over like pink pantyhose. We have like mixed textures on the chest. On the head, I think the curls are beautiful. One way to make a longer haired character look masculine, I think, is finding a crown that cuts across the forehead, or even what's called a circlet. Instead of the ones, I find in my experience that femininity in headdresses are ones that are like perched kind of further back, that dainty like tiara shape. If you can like tilt that forward and again play with the asymmetry, I think there's something really powerful there. How does that feel? Does that sound okay?
That's sort of what I'm thinking too, like some sort of like circlet thing there. Because the thing is with Salai as well, like my first year out there, he had like really long hair, and half the reason I chopped most of it off was because it's more masculine, shorter, also because it's so humid out there, it doesn't want to stay curled unless there's less of it. So I'm like, sorry Salai, until I figure out the humidity thing, you're gonna suck it up with shorter hair. You're fine.
I love that. Yeah, I'm seeing the circlet. How do you feel about like tendrils coming down within his curls? Like, would you want maybe like some
one
pearls?
thing that I love about curls is the idea of putting stuff in it, you know? Like, so I'm like, I would love like little like, not seaweed, because I think he'd be one of those people like, I'm not putting seaweed near my hair. Are you kidding me?
I don't think he would.
No, thank you. But like something sort of like fancy, like hanging down there, and like you know how like you can buy those little like, don't remember what they're called, those like metal things you can like stick on your hair and they sort of like do that. I want to get him some of those just in like real life, but like for out as a person out fast.
At Michael's, what I did for Echo, because she's the same way. She doesn't want seaweed in her hair.
She has. Echo and Salai are very kindred spirits in the. I have to look nice. Don't even.
They really are.
They very much are.
They would be best friends. So I went to Michael's and I found this sort of like ribbon spool, but it was made of pearls on clear fish line string. And I cut them to the different lengths and then put a crimp bead on one end and made a loop with the fish line. And then I just sewed it into the wig. And it's so fascinating because wigs, when they're synthetic, are plastic. So they kind of float up and hold the curl shape. But so did those pearls. So it would float underwater and kind of fill out like these pearls look like bubbles. And I know you're not going underwater, but maybe someday you could consider that. Or some other kind of like, I don't know if bright white pearls would suit him, but like rosy pearls.
Yeah, like pale pink.
Yes.
Definitely.
against the dark brown would be so beautiful. I also am kind of seeing something reminiscent to different queer and masculine fascinators of the time, those like different hats where they were often like very high and tall with feathers.
Yeah.
Would you consider like some kind of little like boop little spray of pearls off to one side before
Probably,
it, like, loops
because
down?
my favorite thing, I'll grab one more thing really quick.
Yes.
Salai has two hats. This is his fancy boy. Let's do his fancy boy and painter boy. They're two different people, but the same person.
Okay.
This normally has a bunch of really fancy feathers, but they're tucked away, and I'm not going to try and get them. But since my other hat can't really do that, I did find this pin that has the same peacock feather.
That's right. I've seen that.
So that's one of my favorite things with that. But yeah, Salai is very much a give me feathers or give me death type person.
Do you think he would be someone to wear that kind of like droopy smock as a merperson, or do you think he would prefer?
No, I think definitely. Yeah. So my biggest design ethos with Salai, there's another historical figure who is also one of Leonardo's apprentices named Francesco Melzi, and I would love to be able to design a Francesco Melzi. And one of my biggest design ethos when it comes to that is the hair, because Francesco also had long, not as curly, but long, wavy, curly-ish hair. And the biggest way I would differentiate them is Francesco would have his hair tied back like mine is now, whereas Salai's would be wild and free. Because for me, that sort of has like, it's tied back, prim and proper. I'm a fancy boy. I've been raised in fanciness. I know how to do court life, blah, blah, blah. Whereas like, I'm a little gremlin who just is here because I happen to have a rich guy who likes me. What's up? So.
Okay, I love that. Maybe then, especially as a person, Salai's hair would be down and kind of crazy. And like,
honestly, I would, if it weren't for the fact that my hair looks a bit weird on top when it's curled, and the fact that hats are kind of important, I wouldn't even wear a hat for Salai if I didn't have to.
Well then, one thing I always say to people who are trying to get into mermaiding and they're talking about costumes, they're like, I'm trying to convey this character. I always say, throw everything you know about costuming out the window and start over. You are a different species. Not literally, please don't. Those costumes are beautiful. I'm like, oh God, no.
This is actually the same material as the Queen's sleeves.
Oh, wow. So. How about that? I love it. Yeah, throw it all out the window. Recreate the wheel. Think about materials in your house differently. Like one time I used a part of a curtain to make a top, like it's all in your house. We don't have to spend a lot of money to make masculinity as a mermaid accessible, right? But I'm thinking like this is coming along really well. Do you feel like you have new ideas?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Okay, good. What other things were you like concerned about? Were you thinking about makeup or mostly just like the chest piece? That was the biggest.
Mostly the chest piece, makeup as well, because Salai is part of the reason he is known in history, other than the fact that he was Leonardo's apprentice, is because he was very effeminate. I can actually send you some pictures of like.
Yeah, please do.
I've edited this one because I hate Salai at the same time, but he was the model for the St. John, and like
what really?
He there's no facial hair on that. He has these long curls, and so he was very effeminate, and he also has like at the time it was more attractive and feminine to have a fuller figure, like have more fat on your bones. You can see he is not skinny in that,
No.
So it's like he was definitely like an ideal. That's what a woman should look like. Which is something I want to lean into. And it's one of those things, I've been told I have an androgynous face, but I've also been told I have a very feminine face. And I'm like, the people who've said very feminine face are the people who are like, I'm not so hip with the transes. And I'm like, so I'm not sure I'm going to take that entirely. So I'm like, I want to be able to lean into he's very feminine, but also not woman right now, please and thank you.
There is an account that I suggest you follow on Instagram called Perceptual Makeup, and she treats makeup the way I see it, which is a science. It is a study of the anatomy of the human face. And so many creators disagree with that, and that's valid and fine. But I see the process of becoming Echo as sort of this like rage against dysphoria, this fuckery with gender. It is not just putting on makeup. It is a religious practice to me at times. And so I really encourage you follow her because she just posted something very fascinating, which was a study of how masculine shadows fall and how to translate that into makeup. Because good drag art is not simply putting the shadows in the right place for a masculine face. It's molding and reshaping. So how does your face look now? how can we make it masculinized is a stroke of the paintbrush. It's not so much just an analysis of light. So highly recommend follow her guide. It's phenomenal. And then also I would say play with color. Mermaids are whimsical.
Very
So
colorful.
like even in the contour, can we do like a dark rose contour color?
Yeah.
Because when you start to look at mermaids' faces, we want to emote this different world, and something very human is contour. So pick another color, like fuck with it, you know, get weird. Yeah.
I'm also one of those
absolutely.
people that my whole relationship with makeup, unless I'm doing something like for a stage thing, is like, if I'm going to be wearing a lot of makeup, you're gonna fucking know I'm wearing makeup.
I want you to know. Yeah.
You want me to know. That's not, no one's face looks like this.
Right. Yeah.
And I definitely would want to lean in on that more with the mermaids. Because like when I'm doing Salai out in the world, I'm like, okay, a little bit of stuff around the eyes to sort of make them pop more. And also, because I know men tend to have like I already have decently hooded eyes to an extent, you know, which is a very masculine feature. So I'm like, fuck yeah. But sort of like add some like make it darker underneath and then darken the eyebrows. And then I have to give Salai a little bit of blush because for femininity and then rosy lips. But I'm like, okay, cool. That's it. A little bit of concealer, a little bit of eyeliner, blah, blah, blah. There we go. Whereas when I'm doing like, again, I stream on Twitch. It's Eiledon, which is that. When I'm doing makeup on that, when I'm actually having the time and effort, that's like, what the fuck is on your face?
Right.
Like, it's called fun. It's called fun.
I'm not trying to look nice. I'm trying to
exactly. I want to look insane.
I want to have fun with this and putting it on my body. Yeah. And the other thing I would encourage you to think about too is different patterns. Like, would Salai grow scales on his face? Would he grow pearls? I think if we can consider asymmetry, differing textures and differing patterns all throughout every aspect of the costume, then we can really create something very unique. And then bound that with mermaid specific movements. Like, how would he move his hands if he didn't have feet, if he didn't grow up with that sort of stability? Yeah. So anyway, I hope this gives you a good foundation. Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on before we say goodbye?
Not really, except that thank you. Also, because I have another friend who really is considering auditioning this year. Woo! But their thing is that they're like, I don't know how to interact with people by myself. And they're like, I would love to do mermaiding. But they're like, but if I want to do mermaiding, I want to do it more masculine. And I'm like, I'm so glad you asked that right now. 2 days after I echoes like, hey, do you want to talk about this? Because I'm like, I might have information for you in like a week or so.
Yeah, send them this video. Maybe this will be helpful. And we would love to see them out at Fest. That would be so fun.
If you want to partake in the Ask Echo series, there is a form below that you can fill out for a chance to be selected to participate. I want to offer a huge thank you to Eiledon for participating and being my guinea pig for this first installment. It was so fun. They are truly such a bubbly and wonderful person, and I really hope you go check them out at all their stuff below. I will see you next time, and as always, never swim alone. Bye!